All right, so I'm going to go over the install of at least let's get this thing unboxed. Innovative SCG1 solenoid boost controller with wideband gauge kit. Okay, comes in a box like this. You get the gauge. Looks like you can change it to a silver face if you to choose. The wiring is in here. Looks like there's plug ends on, so hopefully that makes install a little easier. Looks like it comes with a bunch of vacuum lines here. We got some clamps, some small stuff, some T's, a larger line. It gives it a little label here. Is this one labeled? Nah, this one's labeled. Looks like you got some stickers and stuff in here, so a couple things to check out. All right, now 4-pin programming cable. Looks like it goes to a serial port, so it's probably I think that might be the same one as the watt box, boost box type deal. All right, looks like, what do we got here? Bracket kit for the solenoid comes in here. All right, now here it looks like we got cable sensor, 8 foot long, so that'll run down, plug into the sensor that go in the exhaust for the wideband. They include bung. They include a 1-inch mild steel bung. That way, if you don't have sensor mounting in your exhaust, you can drill a hole and weld this in. Some of the ones that come with the AEM gauges, I kind of like them. They're not quite as long, but they actually come with a little lip so that if you drill a hole, you could set it there and it'll stay in place and then you can weld it. That's something we're not going to need. All right, now FPE, I guess that's the number for something here, but that might be for what's in that little bag, which looks like a couple fittings that are going to go into our solenoid. Plug and play, looks like it just plugs right in. All right, and this here is a 4-bar sensor. I guess that's going to plug into, you just hook to a vacuum source, boost source, basically off of your intake manifold, and it'll plug right in also. Here is our sensor. You want to be very careful with any of the O2 sensors, gauge sensors, or anything like that. You don't want to drop this. You don't want to bang this. They're very delicate. You don't want to get any kind of silicone spray on them or anything either. Get the paper in here. Looks like we have use our manual. We go through quite a few things here. AFR, status here, pressure. Basically goes over, I'm sure this will be install, which way to route everything. Looks like external wastegate, internal wastegate. Looks like they have it actually routing from the bottom to the top. It's kind of weird. Normally don't do that with a manual boost setup on these. 24 inches after the supercharger, so there's a good location for that. Goes through boost controller setup. Looks like you can go in, you can set up advanced analog output programming. 4.2, 4.9. Goes through and tells you about the sensors, logging with it, and then some stuff on the warranty. Looks like error codes. It gives you some error codes, so you can see if it'll tell you if it's a bad sensor, which is pretty cool. So supply voltage, a bunch of things, but that's what comes with the gauge kit. We're gonna get this stuff unboxed. We're gonna work on getting our stuff laid out, where we're gonna mount our solenoid, assembling some of that stuff, and well, we'll see if we can get this thing hooked up. Now this car had an engine fire, and it did damage the manual boost controller, and the owner wanted this gauge here installed. So we'll see what we got to do here with it. Work. Like I said, we're not going to need that. There's our sensor wiring. I can go with our sensor. Bracket. Cable will go inside. Accessory pack. That will go inside. So let's open up this one here first. Most of these normally just have a red and a black wire coming off of them. So they normally have, oh, look at that. Normally there's an air release and it has this coming out with a cone shape, so that's actually pretty cool. I'm going to stick a little bit of Teflon tape on these threads, and I'm going to get them installed here. Typically this goes in, out, and then breeze out number 3, but we'll double check our book and we'll get this stuff together. All right, so we got that nicely assembled. Let's open up the next one. I did get the bracket. It looks like you can mount this way or this way. I'm assuming it's going to be like this, and it's on a rubber pad, so we got to find a good location to mount the solenoid that's going to be out of the way and functional. So it looks like we got a piece of hose, smaller piece of hose, some clamps, a couple zip ties, and some teeth. Let's get this stuff out of here. We got a Ziploc bag here, so we won't lose anything. So we'll get that down in here. Well, looks like we're going to be down to starting to get our wiring run, and we can get our sensor in. There is already one installed on this car, an AFR gauge, and we're going to get that removed. So basically we got to get underneath the car, we're going to unplug it, we're going to install our new sensor, and then see what we got to do to pull that wiring up out for that sensor, and then we'll work on getting the new wiring installed. So let's get this out of the bag here. This plugs in, so we'll feed this down through into our hole like we normally do. While we're at this here, I really wanted to get this gauge unbagged and see what was actually in here also. Let's give it a quick check out. Not too bad, I guess. All right, so we have this plug here. Looks like it's for the AFR sensor. We have two small ones. One's in and one's out. I have to look to see what they are. And then, what does this look like? That's a little 2. So I'm going to guess that that one's for that. Number 3. So that's for the sensor. That would be here. And then we have a couple wires here, which I'm sure is power and ground, and maybe one's a signal wire. One could be to hook to your lights, dash lights. I'll have to look at that, but man, there's a lot of wires coming off of one gauge. All right, let's see what else is in the bag. So it looks like it comes with chrome face, which we're not going to be using because that won't match the other gauges. Also comes with a little white face to be installed. All the other ones we have are black. Alright, this is what we got. AFR. And I'm sure you're seeing that reflection. That's pretty wild. I never really noticed that before. And the boost is over here. Let's kind of take a look at those when they get powered up. Alright. Usually it goes through a cycle and it'll heat up, and then it'll give you a reading, oil pressure. Boost right here. So it is kind of cool. It kind of reads blue and then it goes to red and stuff. Very nice gauges for what they are. I'm so used to using the, there you go. I'm so used to using the AEM ones. But they are a nice choice. So I did wire all these gauges in here about 3 years ago. So everything is in here, and it's actually put in here pretty decently. So we'll be able to get our AFR gauge here removed, and hopefully we have enough room in behind here. This did come down just a little bit, so I'm going to see if I can't fix that up a little bit. Some of these that have the broken, sometimes what I'll do is I'll put a screw here, and that helps hold it in. This is the light coming from the watt box. That's like kind of a shift light. I forget what that's actually set for, but that's in there also. All right, so we're down to removing the AFR gauge and installing the new sensor and running that wiring. So we don't really need to see too much of removing. We want to see install. So I'm gonna get that stuff pulled and out of the way, and I'll show you the install. All right, so everything is removed for the AFR gauge, and it is a major operation going on here. So everything's out. We're at the point of getting to seeing what we got to do for install on this. It looks like all of the wiring except for these two small ones are going to fit out the bottom, so I got to figure out what they're for to see if I got to feed them up through before I push that in. Easy enough. And then which one of those will be this, I would assume. And then here is our sensor wiring. So we'll be feeding that back through and then dropping it down and getting our sensor plugged in. We will have to feed the wiring in for this through that hole also. The way that came down here without a light. Now, the way that this is in here, these sensors are here. So this has a V-band, so I don't know, it's pulled up and over too far, so they kind of are really tight here. So I had to undo the exhaust back there to get it to move over. And now we can get the sensor in and run our wiring. All right, so the lower sensor's done. I got to zip tie up some stuff down there. I think I'm going to end up placing this right here, and then I'll run, I think I'll run over this way, and then I'll run out and around and then back up. That way we're nowhere near the heat. I might run across in the front here to get to the wastegate down here. If that ends up looking like that's going to be easier to go with hose, I'm sure I'm going to need more than what is here, but we have the solenoid mounted. I tucked that 4-bar sensor down inside. It's just to give this a reading for boost, I assume. So that we have that. I have to tie this into the headlight wiring so that it dims this at night. Here is the serial port cable. We have that hanging down. I'm wrapping some tape around here because it fits loose in this hole. So hopefully that makes it fit tighter. I just have to, I'm going to cut that with a razor blade. I don't like pulling on it. It just makes a nice cleaner end when you do it that way. And we're going to get ready to power this up and see what it looks like. It's just the little finishing touches that do this stuff just right. Okay. Oh boy. There we go. It is lit up. So to program it, I'm not sure what we got to do. AFR, wideband, O2 heater. So it's heating the O2 up, which is what it should be. Boost, peak boost. I don't know. I guess maybe that's AFR and PSI. O2 calibrating. What's this do? Well, it just goes back. Peak PSI. Peak boost. Wideband. Alright. I'm going to finish getting everything else installed with the AFR and getting all the vacuum lines run to the turbo and the wastegate for the controllable boost. And then maybe we'll get to, we'll look over the instructions and see what it says to as far as getting that stuff adjusted. I believe we need to, it says internal wastegate like this, external wastegate like that. So, I guess we'll see. This is really going to make that a lot different because most of the time we normally only go to either just the bottom or the top with manual boost control. So, alright, I'm going to get this thing hooked up. Alright, we've got everything assembled here. We've got our strut bar back on. This thing is looking pretty. Our little solenoid's mounted down here. I just went through and double checked everything, zip tied everything up, made sure nothing was rubbing, anything that was near any heat was good to go. All right, well, let's check out this gauge. Let's get this gauge going. All right, now. Okay, so checking this out. Basically, we went through and we did the calibration on the sensor. Okay, the wastegate doesn't have a top port, so I had to wire it in this way. The way this reads, it reads that it kind of is the same. It's going to do it the same way no matter what. All right, sensor calibration, boost controller setup. It tells you what you can go in here and do. I'm still trying to figure this out here myself. So here's the sensor. It's going to go through its heater process. I'm going to hold this, and then if you want to change this, you have to hold this again, and then you can change that. The lowest one is going to be the smallest one. Now I changed the fuel type over to E85 because this is what that is at. I'm not sure what the 9.8 is unless that's the target AFR reading that you want to have. And then it tells you the wideband, how that's enabled. O2 units in AFR, map units, RPM scale. I'm not sure what's going on there. We don't have any way to read those because I don't have that sensor wired in for that. Shift light, I'm not sure that's not going to work for us. AFR start pressure, not sure what this setting is. Boost cut pressure, active pressure, gain, and then back to the wastegate duty. Now if give this thing some time, it'll come around and it'll start flashing. I figure what I got to do to get out of that configuration. But you can adjust everything. Map units, enable. So yeah, let's go in here. Just show you wastegate duty. So I'll hold this and it starts to flash. The more duty, It says it should increase your boost. It was originally set at 4. I kind of just set this thing at 2. I'm not going to be the one that takes this thing out and runs it to see what it's going to be set at. But that's where that gets set, and like I said, after a minute or two that will shut off. But let's fire this thing up. It's always a little lumpy after first start. Still heating up. Boost. It's 11. So that's reading right. Wideband AFR. And then I'll do kilograms. I think that's what that's called. There's 2 different ways of reading that. And you can switch them. There's the wideband right now. Pretty cool little solenoid controller. I don't know what these things cost. I didn't look it up. It offers a lot of features that I think are pretty cool. I don't really mess with the innovative stuff too much. Like I said, I have AEM in both of my cars. I don't know if it's just because of cost or they just seem to be what everybody uses, and that's what I'm just accustomed to. These do seem to work pretty good. And with that, I mean, there's still a lot to learn that needs to be read through this book to be able to make sure that this is working, along with driving it and stuff, and being able to adjust the boost and the other functions that this will allow you to do. And with that,